Emma loved heights. The Ferris wheel was always her favorite ride at any carnival, and this one was no different. She waited in line, excitement bubbling inside her. As she boarded the ride, she noticed the operator, a grizzled old man with piercing blue eyes, watching her intently. The wheel started to turn, lifting her high above the carnival. She admired the view, the twinkling lights of the fairgrounds below her. But as the wheel reached its highest point, it suddenly stopped. Emma was left hanging, the wind tugging at her hair. She looked down and saw the operator staring up at her, a sinister smile on his lips. Panic began to set in as minutes passed, and the wheel remained still. She tried to call for help, but her voice was lost in the noise of the carnival. Then she heard it, a soft, whispering voice carried on the wind. "Emma!" called, sending shivers down her spine. She looked around, but there was no one nearby. The voice grew louder, more insistent. "Emma, come down." She felt a strange compulsion to obey. Her hands moved on their own, unlocking the safety bar. She stood up, balancing precariously on the edge of the seat. The wind howled around her, the voice urging her to jump. Just as she was about to step off, the wheel jerked back to life. Emma fell back into her seat, heart pounding. The ride operator was gone, replaced by a young woman with a concerned look on her face. Emma's hands trembled as she locked the safety bar back in place. When the ride ended, she stumbled out, her legs weak. She searched for the old man but found no trace of him. She asked the new operator, but the woman claimed there had been no one else running the ride. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. The whispering voice haunted her, calling her name over and over. She looked out her window and saw the carnival lights still twinkling in the distance. Even though the fairgrounds were supposed to be closed, drawn by an irresistible force, she walked to the carnival, her feet moving of their own accord. She found the Ferris wheel, its lights flickering ominously. The old man stood by the controls, his blue eyes glowing in the darkness. "Welcome back, Emma," he said, his voice the same whisper that had haunted her all night. "It's time to finish the ride." Emma felt her body move towards the Ferris wheel, the safety bar clicking shut around her. As the wheel began to turn, she knew she wouldn't be coming back down. The carnival's allure lies not just in its lights and sounds, but in the dark corners where nightmares hide. Eleanor, Jacob, and Emma discovered this too late, their lives twisted by the malevolent forces that lurk in the shadows. The carnival moves on, leaving behind only whispers and empty seats, waiting for the next curious soul to step into the darkness. Emma felt her body move towards the Ferris wheel, the safety bar clicking shut around her. As the wheel began to turn, she knew she wouldn't be coming back down. The Ferris wheel creaked and groaned as it ascended, the carnival lights below becoming distant twinkles. Emma tried to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. The old man, with his eerie blue eyes, seemed to merge with the shadows, his form flickering in and out of existence as the wheel rotated at the top. The wheel halted again. Emma found herself suspended in the air, the wind howling around her. Below, the carnival had transformed. It was no longer the lively, bustling fairground she remembered. The stalls were empty, their vibrant colors faded and peeling. The rides were rusted, and the once laughing patrons were now ghostly figures, their eyes hollow and lifeless. "Emma." The whispering voice returned, louder and more insistent. "Jump." She resisted, gripping the edge of the seat with all her strength. Her heart pounded in her chest, fear coursing through her veins. She closed her eyes, praying for this nightmare to end. When she opened them again, she was no longer on the Ferris wheel. Emma was in a small, dark room. The only light came from a single, flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling. The walls were covered in newspaper clippings, each detailing mysterious disappearances at carnivals over the years. Her own photo was among them, a stark reminder of her current predicament. The door creaked open, and the old man stepped inside, his eyes gleaming with a malevolent light. "Welcome to your new home," he said, his voice dripping with sinister glee. Emma backed away, her mind racing. She had to find a way out. She couldn't let herself become another forgotten victim of the carnival. The old man advanced slowly, his presence filling the room with a suffocating darkness. "You can't escape," he whispered, his voice echoing in her ears. "This carnival is a place of lost souls, and now you are one of them." Desperation fueled her actions. Emma lunged for the door, shoving past the old man. He reached for her, his fingers brushing her arm, but she managed to slip through his grasp. She ran down a narrow corridor, the walls closing in on her. The sound of her footsteps echoed loudly, mingling with the ghostly whispers that filled the air. She emerged into the main fairground, but it was a twisted version of itself. The rides were grotesque caricatures, the lights flickering erratically. She could see other figures wandering aimlessly, their eyes vacant and lost. The old man was right. This was a place of lost souls. But Emma refused to accept her fate. She scanned the fairground, searching for anything that might lead her to freedom. Her eyes landed on the exit gate, its rusty hinges creaking in the wind. She bolted towards it, her heart pounding in her chest. The gate was heavy, but she managed to push it open. The moment she stepped outside, the carnival behind her vanished. She found herself standing in an empty field, the morning sun casting a warm glow over the landscape. The carnival was gone, leaving no trace of its existence. Emma collapsed to the ground, her body trembling. She had escaped, but the memory of the carnival's horrors would haunt her forever. She knew she had to warn others, to make sure no one else fell victim to the malevolent forces that lurked within as she got to her feet. She heard a faint whisper on the wind. "Until next time, Emma." She shivered, knowing that the carnival would return, seeking new souls to claim. The town was abuzz with rumors about the carnival's disappearance. Some claimed it had never been there at all, that it was just a figment of their collective imagination. But Emma knew the truth. She could still feel the cold grip of the old man's hand, hear the whispering voices that called her name. She became a local legend, the girl who survived the haunted carnival. People would come to her for stories, for warnings, but she could never fully explain the terror she had experienced. It was something that had to be felt to be understood. Years passed, and Emma tried to move on with her life. But every time she saw a carnival poster or heard the distant sound of calliope music, a chill would run down her spine. She knew the carnival was still out there, waiting for its next victim. And one day, it would come back for her. Years passed since Emma's terrifying escape from the carnival. She moved to a different town, trying to leave the past behind, but the haunting memories stayed with her. The nightmares were relentless, and she often awoke drenched in sweat, the old man's whispering voice echoing in her mind. She saw therapists and took medication, but nothing could erase the fear that clung to her. Emma became obsessed with researching the carnival. She spent hours at the library and online, uncovering every piece of information she could find. There were whispers of a cursed carnival that appeared throughout history, leaving a trail of missing people and broken lives. The descriptions varied, but the eerie details were always the same. An old man with piercing blue eyes, a sinister Ferris wheel, and a host of lost souls. One evening, while sifting through old newspaper archives, Emma came across an article about a similar carnival sighting in a neighboring town. The photograph accompanying the article showed the same eerie Ferris wheel, unmistakably similar to the one that haunted her dreams. Her blood ran cold. She knew she couldn't ignore it any longer. She had to face her fear and find a way to stop the carnival for good. Determined, Emma packed a bag with essentials and drove to the town where the carnival had appeared. The town was small and quiet, but the atmosphere was heavy with a sense of foreboding. She found a flyer advertising the carnival, and her heart raced as she saw the familiar name, Carnival of Shadows. That night, Emma approached the fairgrounds with a mix of dread and resolve. The carnival looked almost identical to the one she had escaped from years ago. The same flickering lights, the same eerie music, and there it was, the Ferris wheel, towering over everything like a grim sentinel. She paid for a ticket and stepped inside. The carnival was bustling with people, but Emma knew they were in danger. She had to find a way to warn them, to stop the carnival from claiming more victims. She wandered through the stalls and rides, searching for any sign of the old Emma as she moved deeper into the carnival. She felt the familiar sense of unease growing stronger. The air grew colder, and the laughter of the patrons seemed hollow and distorted. She spotted the old man near the Ferris wheel, his blue eyes glinting malevolently as he watched the riders. Emma steeled herself and approached him. "I know what you are," she said, her voice trembling but determined. "And I'm going to stop you." The old man smiled, his teeth sharp and glistening. "Welcome back, Emma," he said, his voice the same sinister whisper that haunted her dreams. "You can't stop what you don't understand." Before she could react, he grabbed her arm, his grip cold and unyielding. The world around her shifted, and she found herself back on the Ferris wheel, the safety bar clicking shut around her. The wheel began to turn, lifting her high above the carnival once more. "Let me go!" she screamed, struggling against the safety bar. The old man laughed, his form flickering like a shadow in the dim light. "You belong to the carnival now," he said. "You escaped once, but you won't escape again." Emma's mind raced. She had to find a way out to break the cycle. She remembered the newspaper clippings in the dark room, the whispers of lost souls. She closed her eyes and focused on the faces she had seen, the people who had disappeared. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. "I know you're out there. Help me stop him." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, she felt a strange sensation, like a surge of energy coursing through her body. The Ferris wheel began to creak and groan, the lights flickering erratically. She opened her eyes and saw the ghostly figures of the lost souls surrounding the wheel, their hollow eyes fixed on the old man. The old man's smile faltered as the ghosts advanced on him. He tried to back away, but their ethereal forms closed in, trapping him. Emma felt the safety bar release, and she climbed out of the seat, descending the wheel with the help of the spectral figures. The ghosts swirled around the old man, their whispers growing louder, more insistent. "You can't keep us here," they chanted. "You can't hold us forever." The old man screamed, his voice a twisted, inhuman wail. His form began to dissolve, the shadows consuming him. The Ferris wheel shuddered violently, the entire carnival seeming to tremble with it. Emma stumbled to the ground, watching as the ghostly figures and the old man vanished into the night. The carnival around her began to fade, the rides and stalls dissolving into mist. Emma stood alone in the empty fairgrounds, the morning sun just beginning to rise. She felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. The carnival was gone, and she was free. But as she turned to leave, she heard a faint whisper on the wind. "Until next time, Emma." She shivered but walked away, knowing she had faced her fear and won, at least for now. The carnival might return, but she would be ready. She would always be ready. Emma walked away from the empty fairgrounds with a heavy heart, knowing that although she had won this battle, the war against the malevolent carnival was far from over. She returned to her town and resumed her life, but she never let her guard down, always vigilant for any sign that the carnival might reappear. Several years passed without incident. Emma found solace in helping others who had experienced trauma, working as a counselor. She used her own experience to empathize with her patients, many of whom had faced their own demons. Despite the lingering fear, she found a measure of peace in her work. Then, one day, a new patient arrived. A young man named Alex, with haunted eyes and a nervous demeanor, came into her office. Emma sensed immediately that something was deeply wrong. "Thank you for seeing me," Alex said, his voice trembling. "I've been having these nightmares. I can't explain it, but they feel so real." Emma nodded, her heart sinking. She had heard similar stories before, but something about Alex's demeanor struck a chord. "Tell me about your nightmares," she said gently. Alex took a deep breath, his eyes darting around the room as if he expected something to leap out at him. "It's always the same. I'm at a carnival, but it's wrong. The lights flicker, the rides are twisted, and there's this Ferris wheel. There's an old man with piercing blue eyes. He watches me, and I can't escape." Emma's blood ran cold. She knew this wasn't a coincidence. "Alex," she said softly, "I need you to tell me everything you remember about this carnival." As Alex recounted his dreams, Emma realized that the carnival was preparing to return. She couldn't let it happen again. She had to find a way to stop it for good. The plan: Emma and Alex decided to investigate the carnival's origins. They spent hours researching old newspapers, town records, and any historical documents they could find. Slowly, a pattern began to emerge. The carnival seemed to appear every 20 years, always in different locations, but always leaving a trail of missing persons and haunted survivors. Their research led them to an old, forgotten legend about a man named Elias Blackwood. According to the stories, Elias had been a carnival owner in the late 1800s. Desperate to save his failing business, he made a pact with dark forces, trading his soul for eternal success. The carnival thrived, but at a terrible cost. It became cursed, a trap for lost souls, and Elias was doomed to be its eternal ringmaster, bound to the Ferris wheel that had once been his pride and joy. Emma and Alex knew they had to confront Elias and break the curse. They gathered supplies, including protective charms and symbols they hoped would help fend off the dark forces. Emma also contacted some of her old friends, people who had survived encounters with the supernatural, to help them in their quest. The return to the carnival one evening, as the sun set and the town grew quiet, Emma received a call from Alex. "It's here," he said, his voice trembling. "The carnival is back." Emma felt a mix of fear and determination. She gathered their team and headed to the fairgrounds, now transformed into the sinister carnival of shadows once more. The air was thick with an oppressive sense of dread, and the flickering lights cast eerie shadows over the rides and stalls. They approached the Ferris wheel, where Elias Blackwood stood, his blue eyes glowing with malevolent glee. "Welcome back, Emma," he said, his voice a chilling whisper. "And I see you've brought friends." Emma stepped forward, her resolve unwavering. "This ends tonight, Elias. We're here to break the curse and free the souls you've trapped." Elias laughed, a sound that sent chills down their spines. "You think you can defeat me? This carnival is my domain. You cannot hope to win." But Emma and her team were prepared. They formed a circle around the Ferris wheel, holding hands and chanting an ancient incantation they had discovered in their research. The air grew colder, and the ground beneath them trembled. Elias's smile faltered as he realized the power they wielded. "No!" he shouted, lunging towards them. But Alex stepped forward, holding a mirror covered in protective symbols. "Look at yourself, Elias," Alex said, thrusting the mirror towards him. Elias recoiled, his form flickering and distorting. The mirror reflected not the carnival owner, but a tormented soul, twisted by centuries of darkness. Elias screamed as the reflection pulled him in, his body dissolving into a swirl of shadows. The Ferris wheel groaned, the lights flickering wildly before going dark. The ground shook violently, and for a moment, it seemed the entire carnival would collapse. But then, the shaking stopped, and a profound silence settled over the fairgrounds. Emma and her team stood in the aftermath, the oppressive weight lifted from the air. The carnival was gone, leaving nothing but an empty field. The souls trapped by Elias Blackwood were finally free. Epilogue: Emma and Alex stood at the edge of the empty field, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon. They had done it. The curse was broken, and the carnival's reign of terror was over. "Thank you," Alex said, his voice filled with gratitude. "I couldn't have done this without you." Emma smiled, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. "We did it together, and now we can move on." They hugged, knowing that they had faced their greatest fears and emerged victorious. The haunted memories would always linger, but they no longer held the power they once did. As they walked away from the field, Emma felt a sense of closure. The carnival was a part of her past, but it no longer defined her. She had faced the darkness and won, and now she could finally live her life without fear. But deep down, she knew that the fight against evil was never truly over. There would always be new battles to face, new nightmares to conquer, and Emma was ready for whatever came next, her courage and determination stronger than ever. The carnival came to town like a whisper in the night. It was there one evening, its lights flickering to life in the distance, drawing the townspeople with a magnetic allure. The usual rides were there, the Ferris wheel, the carousel, and the spinning teacups. But one attraction stood out, a solitary tent painted in black and white stripes, with a sign that read, "The Silent Clown." Eleanor was among the first to notice the tent. She had always been fascinated by clowns, despite their often creepy portrayal. Something about the silent clown intrigued her. She made her way to the tent, paying the small fee to enter. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. The audience, hushed and expectant, sat in rows of creaky wooden chairs facing a small stage. The lights dimmed, and a single spotlight illuminated the stage. Out walked the silent clown, a tall, gaunt figure in tattered black and white clothes. His face was painted white, with black teardrops under his eyes and a permanent frown. He moved with an eerie grace, each step slow and deliberate, his eyes scanning the audience. Eleanor shivered as his gaze met hers. The show began with simple mime acts, the clown pretending to pull an invisible rope or get trapped in an invisible box. But as the performance continued, the acts grew darker. The silent clown mimed drowning, clawing at an invisible surface above his head, his eyes wide with terror. The audience watched in stunned silence, unable to look away. Then, without warning, the clown stepped off the stage and into the audience. He moved through the rows, stopping in front of Eleanor. He reached out a hand, and she felt an overwhelming urge to take it. As their fingers touched, the world around her seemed to fade, and she was pulled into darkness. Eleanor found herself in a dimly lit room, the air heavy with the scent of decay. The silent clown stood before her, no longer a mere performer but a towering figure of malevolence. His smile, once painted, now stretched grotesquely across his face, revealing rows of jagged teeth. "You wanted to see the show?" he whispered, his voice a rasp that sent chills down her spine. "Now you're part of it." Eleanor's screams echoed in the darkness, unheard by the audience who only saw the clown standing alone, his hand extended as if holding an invisible string. Jacob had always been fascinated by carnivals, particularly the House of Mirrors. The idea of wandering through a maze of reflections, seeing versions of himself in every direction, thrilled him. This carnival was no different, but there was something unsettling about the House of Mirrors here. It loomed at the edge of the fairgrounds, its entrance a gaping maw of shimmering glass. Ignoring a strange sense of foreboding, Jacob entered. The interior was a labyrinth of mirrors that distorted and twisted his reflection. Some made him tall and thin, others short and wide. He laughed at the absurdity of it, moving deeper into the maze. After a few minutes, he realized he was lost. The mirrors seemed to shift and change, leading him in circles. His laughter turned to nervous chuckles as he tried to find his way out. But the mirrors were relentless, each reflection a distorted mockery of himself. Then he saw it, a figure in the distance, standing still among the shifting mirrors. It was a man, tall and thin, dressed in a suit from another era. His face was obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. Jacob felt a chill run down his spine. He moved closer, calling out, but the figure remained silent and stilled as Jacob approached. The man lifted his head, revealing a face without features, no eyes, no nose, no mouth, just a smooth, blank canvas. Jacob stumbled back in horror, his reflection in the mirrors around him mimicking his terror. He turned to run, but the figure was suddenly in front of him, blocking his path. "Welcome," the faceless man said, his voice a hollow echo. "You can't leave now." Jacob's breath came in ragged gasps as he backed away, only to find himself surrounded by countless reflections of the faceless man, closing in on him. The mirrors warped and twisted, the reflections merging into a nightmare of distorted figures. He ran blindly, desperate to escape, but every turn led him back to the faceless man. Jacob's screams echoed through the house of mirrors, but outside, the carnival noise drowned them out. The next morning, when the carnival packed up and left town, the house of mirrors was gone, and so was Jacob. Emma and Alex walked away from the empty field, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon. They had done it. The curse was broken, and the carnival's reign of terror was over. As they moved further away, the eerie silence of the fairgrounds faded behind them, replaced by the sounds of birds chirping and a gentle breeze rustling through the trees. They knew the memories of their harrowing ordeal would linger, but with each step, they felt lighter, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. Together, they had faced their deepest fears and emerged stronger for it. Months passed without any sign of the carnival's return. Emma continued her work as a counselor, helping others overcome their own traumas, drawing on her own experiences to guide them. Alex found solace in his artwork, channeling his emotions into powerful and evocative pieces that spoke of resilience and hope. One evening, Emma received a package in the mail. Inside was a small, intricately carved wooden box. A note accompanied it, written in elegant script. "Thank you for freeing us. The souls lost to the carnival will never forget your bravery. This box contains our gratitude and a reminder that even in darkness, there is always light." Emma smiled, her heart warmed by the gesture. She placed the box on her desk, a tangible reminder of their victory over the malevolent forces that had once haunted them as years passed. The memory of the Carnival of Shadows became a distant echo, a story whispered in hushed tones among those who had witnessed its horrors. Emma and Alex never forgot their ordeal, but they knew they had faced their demons and prevailed. And in the quiet moments of reflection, as they looked out at the world around them, they knew they were finally free. With that, the tale concludes, leaving Emma and Alex with a sense of closure and hope for the future, having overcome the darkness that once threatened to consume them.